All right, everyone, it's Alex back with episode number 48 of the HYPEWORKS podcast. We've got Jake, as usual, with
Yep,
his cool background today
in my
for the
podcast
YouTube
studio.
video. Yeah, and we have Mr. Greg Rosner, joining from New York, sunny New York.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Hey,
Greg.
Jake, as usual.
Yeah, we have some
Go on, Jake.
previous. We'll touch on that later in the show. But first, we need to get into Greg. We
Yeah.
need to know everything about Greg. You need to tell the audience, the regular listeners, the viewers that view intently on YouTube about who is Mr. Greg Rosner and what do you do? Because quite frankly, I'll say this, hand on heart, I've met a few people in my time, but there's not as many amazing storytellers, and there's only one Greg Rosner. So, Greg, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. So, yeah, my name is Greg Rosner. My favorite color is green, and I'm a Capricorn. No, just kidding. I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable talking about myself. I know this is a podcast, and like you want me to introduce myself, but if it's okay with you, let's just do something radically different. And let's just jump into the conversation. And who I am and what I believe will just be very transparent as we go through this. How does that sound?
It sounds amazing.
Give me a
I tell
Uno
you
there,
what,
Jake.
I know too much though, so I think you should get into it first, Alex. The first question's on you.
First question on me. We're talking about distribution pre-recording. And yeah, like distribution right now is like a hot topic in marketing. So yeah, and we were also talking about like automation and automating the podcast itself. So yeah, just maybe get your thoughts on distribution, Greg. It's a bit of a big topic, but maybe there's like an aspect you can talk about.
On distribution.
Yeah,
Distribution. Oh my gosh.
distribution.
I have nothing. Wait, let me just go check ChatGPT to get some insight on distribution. I don't have any insight on that. So let me just introduce myself briefly so we have some context. I think that would be important, come to think of it. So I fix shitty business to business messaging. And so I consider myself to be a messaging makeover expert that helps founders dial in their true story, not the story that they copying from their competitors or the story they've lived with the past 10 years that isn't really cutting through the noise in the market. And I help them, once that's clear, fix their website, their sales materials, their sales enablement content, and also train a GPT to be their AI brand twin so that they themselves, as well as their entire team, could have that brand twin in their pocket to write everything from an email to a proposal to a blog post to a full-on lead magnet.
Yeah, and all of this comes down to most founders out there, they talk in a very product-centric way, which is quite often not the issue. It's the story and the framework behind how
Yeah,
they
yeah.
convey their message.
It's like the common ailment for most founders is they're just enamored in love with their product. And you can't fault them because that's their baby. But in the reality is people don't care about your baby. They care about what the thing could do for them and how it could solve their problems. So that's the basic turnaround that we do typically. And that's a big symptom of a lot of marketing. Another big symptom of bad marketing is just vague language. Vague language that ChatGPT is happy to spit out, for example, and but without clarity. So if you're talking to AI needs clarity. It needs a perspective, and if you don't give it clarity, you give it vague information, it's going to have bad output. So good messaging creates really good AI content. Anyway, back to distribution. Alex, that was your question. I don't know anything about distribution. Like, what could I add there? Is there
Yeah,
anything?
no, that's fair comment, fair comment. Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about more about the on the automation side. But yeah, just go back to your point on what you're saying about ChatGPT. And normally in the last few episodes, it's taken us 20 minutes to get the AI, and we're diving in here. But anyway, yeah, just maybe go a little bit deeper on why the messaging from a like basically you're talking about inputs and outputs, right? You're saying
Yeah.
basically the inputs, if you put bad input into ChatGPT, you get bad output. Can you
Yeah.
expand on that a bit more?
Well, yeah. So if, a lot of people say, oh, let's just use ChatGPT to create marketing. And so they feed into it their current website, their current pitch deck, their current content, which is muddy as heck
Yeah,
and full of product stuff. And GPT digests that in a nanosecond and doesn't really know who this is for. It doesn't really know what are the real bleeding from the neck problems that their customers are suffering with without this solution. It doesn't know some basic things. So, but it doesn't, GPT, because it's so nice, is not going to critique your website. It's just going to look at the patterns. It's an excellent pattern recognition system. So it's going to find the patterns and give you more of the same. And a lot of founders say, oh, look at this. It's creating more stuff for us. But the reality is it doesn't do anything for sales unless it's clear on who this is for, what problem it solves, and how this thing is going to make my life better as a customer.
I mean, I know this because very familiar in some respects with the work, and I think for the audience benefits, because you predate ChatGPT, not a relic, in the room, but you predate ChatGPT, and you have some takes and wisdom on how you can introduce frameworks and tactics of how to present into the framework of how ChatGPT might absorb that and then be able to use some of
Yeah.
those techniques and tactics to convey the message.
Yeah, so frameworks are wonderful, and GPT does understand existing frameworks, but you can train it on frameworks. And especially if you're a business and you've created frameworks, it digests frameworks for breakfast. But one thing I wanted to point out was I've really struggled in this last week with GPT-5. And it's terrible. I spent 2.5 hours with GPT-5, and I was uploading frameworks and content, and it was drifting, and it wasn't following instructions. And it was so frustrating. And then I finally said, stop the music. GPT, I want you to go back in the last 2 hours, and I want you to relook at every mistake that you made, every area that you didn't follow instruction, every area that you drifted from the frameworks. And I want you to give me a point-by-point critique of why and where you fell down. And I was blown away. It basically critiqued itself. And it said, you know what, this really, I messed up on. I don't want to go into details, but I stopped using GPT-4 and 5, and now I'm using back to GPT-4, and it's like an old friend. And the old friend, you can upload your frameworks, you can train it, and it sticks to the guidelines. So this is maybe a temporary hurdle. Maybe GPT 5.1 will be better. But right now, just as a word of warning, here we are, August 19th. People, don't use GPT-5. It'll frustrate you, but definitely continue using GPT-4 until they figure out that issue. Anyway, frameworks. Yes, frameworks are something that GPT sinks its teeth into. When I say GPT, I'm talking now GPT-4o for the time. And it does definitely sinks its teeth into. It finds the pattern, and it's able to expand that framework in beautiful ways. It feels like, and I think you'll recognize this, anyone who's listening who's like a pro user of AI, it's a collaboration, it's a conversation, and it's like a jazz ensemble and a dance partner. It's going to take you into directions you never thought you'd go, but it's only through that collaboration. And I say this with GPT-4 again, just to emphasize, it's not currently 5 at all. Have you experienced that at all, Jake? The 5 problem or no?
I rely less and less on AI these days. I actually have talked with Alex as well on this topic, that I think Cloud by Anthropic is a much better writer. It's more coherent in its outputs than GPT. And I think that shift has happened, especially in the last 2 to 3 months. I feel it's a lot more evident that Cloud is a better writer. So in terms of writing, I tend to rely on Cloud, however you say it, in terms of briefing text to me. In terms of thinking, I feel that GPT knows me better. But one thing that I did do with 5, because I felt it was too agreeable, I felt it was a little bit soft, was that I programmed into its parameters that it must be a strict and hard mentor and not agree with me. And it seems to have fixed some of
That's
the
great.
agreeableness, because I found that it would just drift off and it gives everybody the same generic kind of advice and outputs. And yeah, I really don't like GPT-5. I think there's been a lot of discussion around the topic of GPT-5 as well. Like, is it just reskinned, stripped back versions of other models? And it's been the biggest switcheroo in terms of, we had this massive hype leading up to it, and the model that we've got is faster, but is it necessarily as good as anything where we could actually select different models? Because I used to love O3. I used to think O3 was an amazing model. Its reasoning and mathematics capability were absolutely off the chain. But to your point, I do find ChatGPT 5 very frustrating. I did have to spend a lot of time programming in its parameters exactly how I want it to behave. I do still, especially with my old conversations, use GPT-4 because I feel, again, it knows me much better, and I still use GPT-4 and my old conversations for strategic advice. I know, Alex, you feel much the same, but you use Anthropic a lot more than OpenAI now.
Yeah, I use Claude for writing, and GPT for the sort of automation-y back end stuff. Um, I don't want to pee on your parade, Jake, in terms of like the AI side. I want to switch tracks a bit, and talk about like human nature, Greg, because I guess your whole business is like it's built around in some ways like philosophy, right? Because if I just backtrack a bit, like it's human nature for people to compare, right? They want to compare everything, compare their clothes, compare their house, compare their business. So like where I'm from in my part of the world, everyone builds their business around someone else. It's their competitor, right? They're if they have like a butcher shop or like I don't know, like a bakery, like they want to compare themselves to someone else. So how do you putting the technology aside, like how do you reconcile with people the fact that they want to just be like someone else? How do you persuade them? How do you do that? You know, like is it based in
Yeah.
philosophy, or
No,
where does it come
first of
from?
all, I'd love to throw down the philosophy conversation. It sounds great, by the way. Let's go there, go down that rabbit hole. But I think you're talking about like the tendency for founders to want to be considered similar to their competitors, um, because they want to be considered like in the tribe of their competitors, and that's a valid concern and a valid goal. I think some founders go too far the other way. They're like, I just want to be different. I just want us to be so different. But if you're so different, people don't even know like what they can compare your thing to.
Yeah,
You're just such a unique thing, and they don't want a unique thing. So I don't know that there's anything wrong to be in a category that your competitors are also in. I think it's good to, this is one of my shifts that I recommend founders make, is to add a prefix on top of an existing category. So let's say you're in a bakery, but that's a B2C. What kind of bakery? What's the unique piece around it? So that's cool to add a prefix in front of the thing that you're in, the category, and then you become a category of one. So even NVIDIA did this with accelerated computing. Yes, they're in the computing business. They're selling whatever they're selling. But
chips. Yeah.
Apple, added spatial in front of computing. So I think that's cool to do that, to create a unique position around an existing category. So I think that satisfies both the need for people psychologically to say, founders to say, we are in this category, but there's something special about it. We're solving the problem in a unique way. And that's the prefix. Does that help, Alex?
Yeah, it does. And we've talked about this, me and Jake have talked about this as well. Like we're constantly thinking of positioning, and other people we talk to are thinking of positioning. And I think there's a tendency, like, yeah, like you say, when you can't think of anything unique, then you might just say, okay, we're going to copy someone else. Um, so you don't think that's a really big issue for business owners? Like it's okay to base yourself off someone else, at least in the beginning, and then find your
Yeah.
own voice as time moves on.
Yeah, I think it's good to think of the characters of the story. And I think this is another area that most founders fail. And they are so enamored and in love with their product that they make the product the hero of the story. And so if we're going to come up with a story, well, who's the victims and who's the guide? Who's the champions? Where's the promised land? So let's really unpack the story concept here and help founders place themselves squarely as the guide of the story. They're not the hero. Their customers are the ones that are suffering today and the ones that are looking for something to fix their situation. And they're looking for an agency, if you will, or they're looking for
Yeah.
help that's going to help overcome the villain in their lives, which is like the villain of the story. And just a sidebar about the villain, most founders think the villain is the competitor, but competitors aren't the villain of the story. Competitors are, I would say, adversaries, but in most cases, most founders that I speak to, competitors don't steal their deals every day. It's very rare that they actually lose deals to competitors because the market is so big and there's so many options. So the competitor isn't really the villain. So who do you think the villain of the story is? Just a quick check, Jake and Alex. Who's the villain typically for founders bringing a innovative solution to the market?
The founder.
No, the founder is they're part of the guide, helping
Jekyll and Hyde,
who's the hero,
the Hulk and Bruce Banner.
So I'll let you off the hook here. The villain of the story is the problem that's plaguing their customer, and that problem is also the villain of the story is also like the one that the founder has created their solution for to overcome that villain, right? I mean, it just makes sense. If you're a founder, you create a solution for a given set of customers. Your solution exists to overcome that villain, to overcome the problem. So it's important to, and behind me, it says, if you don't name the real enemy of your message will never win the war. And I think this is an area that most founders fail to do is they don't fall in love with the problem as much as they should. They undervalue the problem and its impact to their customers. Now their customers are suffering because of that problem. And that's something that if you can name the problem and describe the problem better than your customers can in your marketing and your messaging, your customers will automatically believe that you've got the best product. Let me give you an example, just as a metaphor. So for example, if you go to the doctor and the doctor describes these symptoms that you're having in such clarity because they understand and they've been there and they have a prescription. Before they even like give you a prescription, wouldn't you have confidence in this doctor because they've described that, oh, you've got these issues and it happens at night, and you know, that gives you confidence when a doctor prescribes that. Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah. No, totally.
100%, yeah.
So I think the doctor frame is a good frame to have for founders because it really helps you remember that you're selling medicine. You're selling something to solve problems, and to position you as that doctor is very helpful. And instead of the hero, you go to most B2B websites and you can tell right away they're making claims about how great they are and how seamless the integration is and how perfect it is. But people don't really believe that shit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Alex, we went a long way around talking about philosophy, competitors, villains, and approaches to correct positioning.
Yeah, no, that's super. And I think as well, I think like you say, like a lot of people do get focus on the solution rather than the problem. Like that's basically what we're saying, right? Like they're focused on the solution.
Yeah.
So in terms of like your go-to-market then, like as founders or business owners, like we all have different types of businesses. So how would you like go about maybe give away some of your secret sauce here? Like what's the framework for someone looking to focus more on the problem than the solution? Like is there a way they can find it? Is there a way they should describe it? Or
Yeah, so I mean, I have a free GPT you could use. Just go to GPT and type in magnetic messaging, and you'll see the GPT that will evaluate your current website and put it through the framework to see how well, and score it, does it position your solution as the guide in the story, and set up the story to be aligning your solution with changes that are happening in the world already. And this is another good angle to take. So it makes then your solution to be an inevitable, obvious choice among what's going on, because it's aligning what you're saying with how the world has changed. And it's basically saying that the competition is no longer the competition, but the competition is the status quo, is the old traditional orthodox approach to winning, which today no longer works to win. So that's really a good positioning of the enemy. And so this GPT, you can run just put your URL in the GPT, and it'll give you a full summary of where you're doing well, where you're not doing so well, and it'll get you started on the journey of changing the voice in your marketing, your positioning, your message. And that's what we're talking about, the voice and the North Star, the perspective. Because once you change that and get that dialed in really clear, and by the way, I create with my clients like 50-page documents, which is the context engineering that is used to not only train their team, they're humans, but it's used to train their AIs, whether it's GPT or not. And that's super important. You need to give it that perspective. You need to give it this perspective. I can't think of a better way to take it, because without that, the AIs are not going to really know your North Star, know your voice. And they're not going to sound like you. They're going to sound like your competitors, and it'll just be more noise.
Yeah, makes sense. We did mention some examples there, NVIDIA. Is there anyone else like out there who's like you think is really dialed into this like messaging and focusing on the problem?
Yeah, so I mean, Salesforce.com is another example. Their current category, I think, is called enterprise intelligence. And so what they're doing is, yes, they were for many years in enterprise software, enterprise CRM, and so they're keeping their category, but they're adding that one word to the existing category, which is their secret sauce from a positioning perspective. I think intelligence is a good keyword to add on to virtually any business, because any business that's becoming smart, any solution that's adding AI to it, you hear a lot of like AI enabled, powered by AI, this kind of thing. But ultimately, nobody cares about AI. They care about like, what does it do for me? And it brings the intelligence out. It brings the strategy out. It brings the insights out. So like insight is another good word. And I think smart
Yeah.
is another word. Smart, like smartphone, smart technology, smart this. People are adding smart in front of their thing for many years. So language is an evolving thing, but I think a trend that I do see now is adding intelligence to existing
Yeah.
categories. Let's pick any category, like refrigeration, like refrigeration intelligence. Fine, if you're in a
Yeah,
refrigeration business, it makes sense, right?
it does. And Greg, another question I have is like me and Jake were talking about video earlier. So what about the medium these days? Because like obviously you're saying like a lot of B2B websites back in the day were all text based. And now obviously a lot more videos being used. And now obviously voice, you can use like voice with all tons of AI apps. So like how important is the medium to the message?
1 second. It's just too cold in here. Alexa, set main floor to 78 degrees. My feet are cold there. Sorry about that. Could you just say that question again? I got totally.
Yeah, so I was just saying about the medium, like how important is the medium with the messaging? So like a lot of B2B historically was like text based, like webinar and not webinar, um, like like product
Sales copy.
documents and web like loads of text, right? Yeah, sales copy and reports and stuff like that. And obviously now a lot of B2B guys are using influencers, creators, they're using like lots of video format. So and all these younger entrepreneurs are using video, so like how important is the medium to the messaging? Does it matter which medium you use, or is the main thing the
I don't
actual
really know. I don't
don't know?
know. I don't know what the trends are there. I think we all, as you know, every founder is a consumer of all sorts of media, video, and text, and I think since maybe my mindset is all about the story and the positioning that you're taking,
Yeah.
regardless of the medium, because that I think is more important. But yeah, I think, if you can be everywhere, fine, because some people digest, different mediums. But I think with AI is going to level that, because I think more people are having conversations with AI, with ChatGPT in particular, and asking for help solving problems, and what vendors, what people should I talk to, what businesses should I talk to that help solve this problem. And I think the AIs they're digesting the transcripts of the videos, they're digesting everything, just like SEO would. So
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to your question. Sorry, that's sort of a roundabout way of
Yeah,
saying
no,
thank you.
I actually agree. I think a lot of you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You have to, if you're a business, you got to use all the channels. And then your messaging has to be adapted for that channel. So one message is not going to work on email. It's not going to work on video. Like, you have to obviously adapt it. Yeah. Jake's actually done some work on that before with automation, right? Like moving content from one channel to the next.
Done it for hours as well. But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that the reality is that video, in my opinion, is, we're going back to distribution here. But I think video is becoming more important because it's the only thing right now that AI hasn't fully taken over. It's taken over text, but it hasn't taken over humans. I mean, the AI avatars are getting better, and I do get a lot of requests for people, can I automate all my blogs and turn them into AI avatars instead? And sure, you
Yeah.
can do that. And I still think it's a little bit funky right now, but it will get to a point where the differentiation between, is it a human or an AI avatar of a human telling me this content, is it going to make a difference? I think we're closing that gap over time.
But does it make a difference if it's a human or like human-like AI, as long as the messaging that's being fed into that AI is correct, it's not slop?
I
Yeah,
think
so it's interesting. I had mixed feelings about that too. Go on, Jake.
I think people, if they knew you as a person, if they knew Alex or they knew Greg, and they were familiar with your face, and then the AI avatar was something that had been layered on top of that, then you would actually trust the AI avatar to a similar extent, because the association of your face, the value of trust associated with your face is then being carried over to the avatar.
It is all about trust, isn't it? It's all about trust. And so my feeling is, like, there's this guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he has tons of YouTube videos, and he wrote a book called Supernatural, and is in the healing space, I guess. And on YouTube, what people have done is they have taken his voice, they've 11 labsed it, they've created meditations, fake meditations with algorithms, and put it on YouTube. And I can't really tell the difference between Joe's voice and the AI avatar's voice. And I try to discern, like, well, even if it is not his voice, do I like this meditation? Do I like the algorithm behind it, the writing behind it? And I feel like part of it is maybe tuned up by Joe's content, but part of it is mixed with some other perspective. And by the way, this is what I'm meditating on instead of actually meditating. I'm meditating on who wrote this. But I think it comes down to trust. People want to trust. Where is this coming from? Is this coming from the person, the amalgam between the person and the AI, or is that amalgam between them and the AI, or is this some other person building an AI with their own perspective of what they think that person would want to say with the AI? Then it becomes like a fusion of thought, where it's not just one person and one AI, but it's just like a mosh pit of people and AIs.
Yeah, and you talked about trust there. Like, I saw a clip of there's a fake Justin Bieber. He did a whole concert in somewhere in the States, and he did it for 2 hours, and no one could tell it was a fake Justin Bieber, and they were loving it. Like, his voice was good, he sounded authentic, And that's the question. Like, does it matter? Like, as long as the content is good and people enjoy it and they buy it, it doesn't really matter, right? If it's not
Yeah, I
a
don't know if
real,
I don't know if it matters. The jury's out on that.
yeah, which has a lot of implication for business, right? Because if you could spin up like unlimited numbers of salespeople or customer support or people like talking about your business and your messaging, then as long as they trust it, then conceivably it's fine.
Yeah, it does come down to trust and intent. Well, your intent, and anybody that's nefarious and trying to hack these things, it'll come out eventually,
Is
and
is there
all that
anything else,
trust
Greg,
will.
that you recommend to clients like about trust? Like anything that can signal trust?
Uh, um, you know, what's coming to mind is suffering. And I say that because, back to the villain and back to, I think humans, we all have suffered in our lives. And I think AIs don't suffer. And I think maybe they can mimic suffering, but I think if you can start your message, start your position, start whatever you're doing, and you're empathizing with the pain and the suffering that people have that is part of what I think is magnetic, and magnetic to what is what's trustworthy. If you could empathize with what people go through very quickly, that is the secret sauce. And that works in every aspect of life, from sales to marketing to business.
Yeah, so you've got to kind of make yourself vulnerable, like appear like yourself, authenticity, right?
Yeah, it's and that's why I think the best messaging for founders is around the truth of their system, instead of like putting lipstick on their stuff to make it sound better, but to go raw, to go like the truth about it, is always much more appetizing and palpable. But about the empathy, I think people buy from you when they themselves feel understood much faster than if they understood everything about your product, then they'll buy. So I don't think that's true. I think there's so many cases where people may understand everything about your business, but they still don't buy. So there's a secret here that's like under the surface, that has to do with empathy and really being able to connect with your customers in terms of how they feel. And I think that happens by your brand and your story and your salespeople. If they're good, they do this on the first call. Salespeople do this on the first call, good ones. I was just on a sales meeting before this meeting, and I was being sold to, and the salesperson was great. He started out really with almost like a blank slate. There was no pitch, there was no anything. It was really just trying to understand where we were at, where I was at in the business. And good salespeople know this. Good marketing people know this, but most marketing and the GPTs and the AIs that have been trained on marketing that's not empathetic. That's marketing that's full of solution-centric speak. So I'm sorry if I'm going a roundabout way. We're talking about
No, that makes sense.
we're
Yeah,
talking about trust. We're talking about empathy and how that needs to show up for businesses. Um, and I think AI will emulate that pretty well. It may be hard to tell at some point, but right now it's pretty easy to tell uh, the difference.
Okay, Alex, we're going into the final question here. And, at some point, I do need to make the shameless plug for mine and Greg's webinar coming up. Is it next week, Greg?
yeah. Do it. Put it across the screen. It's going to flash across the screen.
I need to check it. Is it next week or the week after? I do have it in my calendar. Tuesday, exactly 1 week. It's time to go hard on that. It's lined up for my newsletter. So Tuesday the 26th. Follow me, Jake Hizzit, or Greg Rosner on LinkedIn, and then hit us up, because I'm about to give that a shameless pump, like I am doing right now. But into the final question. Sorry, Greg, you were
Let's do
going to
it. Well,
pump
you
up
want to
the.
do a
You
shameless
pump it.
plug?
You can pump up the
I want to
webinar as
pump
well.
up the plug too.
Pump it. Pump away. Pump away.
So, I mean, who here can name their AI employees, and I can. And I think by 2026, every business will be naming by name, like Bob,
Bob.
Susan, Amir. They'll be naming, personifying their AI employees full time, 24/7, doesn't sleep, doesn't, they need a virtual machine, but they don't need a laptop. And they know what to do, and they do it better, safer, faster than anybody in your team does it. And I think the shameless plug that I want to make for this webinar is that through Jake's help, Jake has helped build a AI
Bob.
employee. His name is Bob, and he works for Pitch Kitchen. And I also have a Molly and a Ruby on my team. They're AI employees. They're doing different things, but Bob he's the guy. He's my go-to guy to. Anytime I get an interested party in our business, I just give Bob the person's email address, and Bob does research on that person, everything they wrote on LinkedIn, everything about their business. And then once he's compiled a good body of knowledge about that person, then with a prompt that I've worked on, not with Bob, but with GPT-4, Bob will write a couple emails to these people that will empathize with who they are, what they're trying to do, and invite them into a conversation. And it's very effective. And I think where Bob is falling down, it's only in my prompting, in the giving Bob a real mission. Like, what is he trying to say in the emails? And that's always an art anyway. Like, how do you write a good email to someone? So that's the area that I'm struggling with. So it's not Bob's fault. Bob is doing great. But I think the point of this webinar that we're talking about, that Jake and I are going to do, is going to illuminate for people how they themselves can hire an AI sales rep. Can own an AI sales rep as going into 2026. And Jake has all the knowledge and tools to help businesses do that, to replace 3 to 5K per month spends with a single cost, and much lower that cost on a monthly basis. So
Okay.
there's the shameless plug.
Amazing. Okay, the question, Alex, we've got right, Bob, Greg, brace yourself. This is the question. It gets people every week. Avid listeners know that this is the part of the show where there's usually about a silence for 5 minutes whilst the guest sits there and works out the answer to the question. So it's just future predictions. Your predictions for the future. Work, life, the future of the universe. Go. That's it.
Yeah, no, I
It's the
love that.
Nostradamus segment.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I agree with Kevin Kelly, where he says that the future is not a utopia, it's not a dystopia, but it is a protopia. It's a little bit better. And if you think about it, that's kind of like the way it has always been. People are living longer, living healthier lives. Today I flushed the toilet and I just thought to myself, 150 years ago, only a king would be doing that. So yes, our lives will be getting better slowly, and maybe too slow for people to even recognize. But I'm very much an optimist. If anything, I'm leaning heavy on the how things are going to get better. But I think it's not going to be until after there'll be a full out 15% of the workforce is being replaced by AI by 2029. All those white collar jobs that people were holding on to for as long as they could, even though they were using GPT to get their jobs done faster. Meanwhile, their IT department was also running all their emails in and out of pattern creators and realizing that their jobs can be automated. And so then they'll get the pink slip 2029, whatever. And that employee, let's call that Susan Parker, who worked at the company for 4 years, Susan Parker will be replaced by a Susan AI to do whatever Susan was doing in front of a screen. So that shit is going to happen. But I think it's going to I think it's going to happen maybe 2029, 2030. And I think the bellwethers are going to be India and Asia, where a lot of the business process outsourcing is done, because I think that's going to be done by AI. So when that happens, when there's a massive shifts away from BPOs to AI, That's the bellwether for a lot of the white collar jobs in the United States. So it's going to get bad, but that's like a transition period. There, I think just after that happens, there will be boomtown. It'll be wonderful, huge abundance for a lot of people. Better healthcare, better water, better food, better supply chains. Things will get cheaper for people. There'll be better government subsidies because of the AI tax that will probably come. So anyway, I'm an optimist to summarize. So if GPT had to just summarize what I just said, it would say that things are going to get better after they get worse. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right. I think
very
that's
rational.
That's where we'll end on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Short-term pain, long-term gain, yeah. I like it.
Okay. Right. Alex, time
Cool.
to
Yeah, good.
wrap
It
it
was a
up.
good
Yeah.
chat, Greg. Yeah.
Get you on in 6 months.
Yeah, it was deep, but very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that was good for you too, guys. I mean, I enjoy this conversation, and forgive me if I go all over the map, but that's how the brain works.
It's good, man. Yeah, take care. We'll get you back on in 6 months.
Thank you, Greg.
Cool.
Speak soon.
All right.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Guys. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.